Hello, welcome back or welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on me and clicking on this topic. I first want to say thank you. I hope that this topic interests you as much as it interests me. Before I start my discussion on Black labor and just the fight for Black people to survive continuously, I had a little poem that I wrote called Black Labor that I wanted to share before talking more in depth on some other histories and things on Black people in America. This poem that I wrote is titled Black Labor, and it goes something like: Our bodies are used to make money. We have given ourselves for the enrichment of others. Still, we serve our bodies in assembly lines at Amazon, Walmart, building things and breaking our bodies. We earn pennies compared to the CEOs and executives that make millions off of our labor, our work, and our bodies. These executives that devote no sweat, hard labor, and work menial hours compared to our 12-hour shifts. We serve at the bottom. We have for centuries, and now that we have outliers to the rule that break what it means to be black and poor, we cannot complain. We cannot complain because there are Oprahs in the world. We cannot complain because for every 50 million black Americans there are struggling to survive and killing their bodies for no pay, there is one black millionaire. No, we cannot complain that most black people are still in blue collar jobs, physically taxing conditions, adding to the centuries of physical burden our slave grandmothers have served. Why do we still hold lower positions? Why do we still earn less, less control, and less rank? Our family has built this land, ruined their bodies for white slave owners, for white bosses, for everyone but ourselves. Yet we still own nothing. No cotton belongs to us, no property in our name. For centuries, our family worked for no pay, and we still work for less. And we still pay for our own creations. We pay for the land we care for. We give our signature to rent on our land, the land of our grandmothers and aunts and uncles and grandfathers. Our black labor. I hope you enjoyed that. It came from the heart. But that's just like a little creative interpretation and frustration that I had in a moment thinking about how a lot of black people still are controlled in some ways by now white bosses, and in a lot of ways it's kind of the same idea that white slave masters were telling us our working hours and how much we would be paid, and it's still controlled not just by our bosses but by, let's say, labor laws, who is in control of labor laws, who is in control of how many hours we're allowed to work, and things like union controls and all of the working conditions and laws that and regulations that are enforced. And it kind of makes no logical sense why white people would still be in control of the regulations and laws of working conditions when they're kind of the ones that started a lot of the poor working conditions that black people face. But yet they're still the ones that get to say um, they're still the ones that get the say in the rules and conditions for acceptable work practices. All right. Now that you suffered through my poem, or hopefully enjoyed it, I enjoyed it and enjoyed reading it. I want to talk more about the impossibility of Black Americans today in working conditions. I saw this quote that said, keeping Black people from advancing by restricting their ability to become educated has long been a strategy of oppression. This comes from this comes from fun. This book I picked up is called The Three Mothers, by Anna Michaela Tubbs, and this book mostly covers the mothers of Malcolm X, James Baldwin, and Martin Luther King. But it talks a lot about the history of when they're growing up, specifically around the landscape of Black women in the 1900s, in the early 1900s, how each of their individual lives were growing up as Black women separately in each location that they grew up in. When Tubbs talks about the environment that these women grew up in the early 1900s, especially in America, in the South, she says she adds a lot of context and history that's really important to understand the schools they went to and the environment that they grew up in and kind of how it influenced them raising their sons. During 1915, Black Americans slowly gained liberties and found small successes. White supremacists became more enraged. The KKK recruited more members during this time period than ever before. It's estimated that their numbers grew to upwards of 4 million men and women. 4 million. I read this and it really stopped me. I had to think about that number specifically and thinking about an organization rooted in hate. 4 million people. 4 million people joined in hate. Joined in hating people simply based on having darker skin. Joined in hating sweet, innocent Black children. It made me think, where did these 4 million people go? I just want to take a second and sit and think about just that number, 4 million. And I'm going to repeat that quite a lot because that is a lot of people. And when you think about how many people there are in the United States today, there's a lot more people than there was in 1915 and in the early 1900s. And when you think about, okay, I'm just gonna stop there and read my script. How do we know who to trust? 4 million people. Why are we required to trust them? To respond with love and not hate when there is nothing to trust. 4 million. There is little history of trust given. More history has shown us their hatred in stark numbers. 4 million. We need those abolitionists to have some faith in their race, but it is not enough. When I see 4 million that were unified in killing us for simply being human, what I think about is how many there are lurking. Obviously, this number did not magically go down or go away or erase to zero. White supremacists are enabled to continue their violence and terrorism in American society in a lot of ways. They're enabled in committing and continuing their violence against Black people using Christianity and quote traditional values, using racist politics, uses stand your ground, shoot everyone that is Black gun laws, using educated versus non educated rhetoric, and in so many other ways, these organizations and these hateful people are enabled to continue their violence against Black people. How can you respond to being beaten over and over again with a hug? This is what is being asked of us, to sit on the ground and be beaten by whites all around us, telling us that we can do no right. We cannot be educated. We cannot intermix. We cannot be poor and reliant on government systems. But we cannot be rich. We cannot own property. We cannot have things that we have created. We cannot be bosses. We cannot be CEOs. We cannot live. In their minds, we should take the beating and the beating over and over and over again. And when it is done, we should stand up and hug our oppressor, our abuser. We must respond with their violence with immense love and peace. Else we die. Else we rot in prison, falsely accused of their crimes. We can never do right according to them. Okay, that was kind of serious, but it's really irritating that history continues over and over and over again. And I was just thinking about this earlier, but it's crazy to think that in a world of where we have literal robots and AI machines everywhere and big data, that we still live in a world where racism is extremely prevalent against people of color everywhere. And it's crazy that we live in a world where two of those things exist, where it seems so futuristic that we're living with robots, literally, and AI that's able to do such humanistic things, but something so old and ageist, such as racism and violence, and these systems still exist in the same world. It's just actually mind boggling when you actually sit down and think about that. How we're still living in these two worlds, and it seems it's like clashing. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, thinking about what I was just talking about, it reminds me of the Malcolm X quote that says, "In America, when a black man resists letting a white man put a rope around his neck, the black man is accused of violence. When we are the victim, we are accused of being the villain. We are sent to jail for being crack addicts when the whites were the ones giving it to black people and black communities. Trust them. You must have faith that they are good now. Go to their churches and believe what they're saying to you. They don't mean the microaggressions and the dog whistles that you hear that black people are all on food stamps, relying on government assistance. That's just in your head. People are allowed to have opinions. It's not hate speech, no. But let's be honest, where did this 4 million go? Did those numbers just magically go down over the years? Are we absolutely sure that these people are not creeping in political seats, increasing police surveillance in black communities, in executive seats at companies like United Health, denying black people of care, CEOs of Nabisco, PepsiCo, Kellogg's, these food companies that target grocery stores in mostly black communities and hurt young children with polluted and bad ingredients? At Walmart, Target, Amazon, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, are we certain that these 4 million KKK members are not holding executive suites in these companies? If we were to design a trajectory of estimated members, at least a couple thousand still exist. I'm being too generous. Millions exist today. Millions of KKK members exist and are behind executive CEO seats and hold powerful decisions and can control a lot of regulations that we see in America. As police, as politicians, as business leaders, as healthcare leaders, it's hard not to think that they are working to kill black people. I mean, what evidence do we have against this? Searching for evidence against this exact idea is what I'm in search of, honestly. We want to have hope that there are people that care about us and actually want the safety of our children. But what evidence is there to support this? Even the statement, Black maternal health. I'm not gonna get into all of that, but simply that statement alone, I think a lot of people can connect to why a lot of people in black communities have a hard time trusting these systems. There's not much in favor of them actually protecting us, providing safety for innocent black children, and providing safety for black people in hospitals. It's really unrealistic to think that these KKK members are not lurking, not teaching and passing down hate to their children. And we must blindly trust that finally after 200 plus years that they are on our side. Maybe, just maybe, their hate has subsided. Maybe, just maybe, they want the best for us, or at least don't want us to die. The Great Migration was one of the largest internal migrations in history. Between 1915 and 1960, around 5 million Southern black residents moved north to cities including Chicago, Philadelphia, and New York. This mass movement of people emerged as a result of continued racial violence and oppression as African Americans saw little change in their lives 50 years after signing the Emancipation Proclamation. When we leave, seek peace, they come after us with violence and hate in their heart. When we are educated, trying to prove that we are, quote, civilized in their eyes, that we're not just monkeys picking cotton, we are blocked. We are segregated in schools, or given less funding for books and resources. When we have the ability to learn, to read, to write, we cannot go to the same schools. Our schools are not funded. And still we seek peace. We seek trust. That ended abruptly because I didn't want to go on and on about negativity, even though it's like it's real life, sadly. But hopefully my videos in the future will be a little bit more positive. I'm trying to incorporate some positivity, but I hope that you related to this anger and exhaustion really. Um, this kind of was sparking my mind, just everything in the political climate, against black people, against colored people, against people just being innocent and surviving in the world. And it's really exhausting. Um, and I really, really hope that things do change. It's just the same things we say over and over again. It's the same thing that our pastors say over and over again, but all we can do is hope. And I hope that you show up in communities in your own way and make a little difference protesting or donating or whatever you can do, volunteering, anything. Thank you so much for listening to me talk and listening to my poem. And I really hope you enjoyed and felt comfort in these words. And I'll hopefully see you in another one. Thank you so much. Goodbye. No, we cannot complain that most black people are still blue collar jobs. Blue collar hands on. Oh, no. No, we cannot complain that most